Hello, and thanks for joining us for December's TLC Tech Time. I want to welcome those of you who are joining us live today, and also all of you watching the recording. We're happy you're here. My name is Erin French, and I'm an instructional designer in the Teaching and Learning Center. In today's TLC Tech Time, we'll start by briefly reviewing this month's Canvas in 5 video. Then I'll provide a Canvas demonstration, and finally, we will open the floor for a discussion. If you are joining us live, please save your questions until after the demonstration has ended. Before attending TLC Tech Time each month, we recommend that you watch that month's Canvas in 5 video, because during TLC Tech Time, we'll expand on what was presented in the Canvas in 5 video. However, this is certainly not required, and you're welcome to watch it anytime you have a spare 5 minutes. All previous Canvas in 5 and TLC Tech Time recordings are available on the TLC Learning channel, which is our YouTube channel. We have them grouped on a playlist for easy reference, and we're putting a link to that playlist in the chat right now. If you are participating in the Level Up Certificate program, attending TLC Tech Time can help you to earn credits for Level 2 technology. Each 30-minute episode is worth half a credit, and you can earn it by attending live or by watching the recording and self-reporting through our Qualtrics form. If you have not yet enrolled in Level Up, there is a link to the enrollment form in the chat. The December Canvas in 5 topic was Muddiest point assignments. This type of assignment can provide you with data about what your students are confused about. You can use this data to review concepts and perhaps make updates to your course the next time you offer it. Specifically, in the Canvas in 5 video, I showed you a quick way to set up a Muddiest point assignment and what it would look like to a student. In today's TLC Tech Time, I'm going to show you an expanded version of setting up a Muddiest point assignment, how you can duplicate assignments in Canvas, and how you can use the gradebook to manage Muddiest point assignments. Let's get started. Here we are in my Canvas sandbox, and I'm going to navigate back to the Unit 1 Muddiest point assignment that I created in this month's Canvas in 5. To do that, I will click on Assignments in the Canvas navigation menu. And here is the Unit 1 Muddiest point assignment. When I click on it, I can see everything that I set up before, including this description, the number of points, the types of submissions that I will accept, the number of attempts, as well as the due date and the due time. I want to show you some other options to customize a Muddiest point assignment. So I'm going to click on the Edit button, which will take us to the Details tab of the assignment. If I wanted to, I could update the name of the assignment or anything about the description. The description asks students to review all of the Unit 1 materials and to attend this week's class session. This will make sure that they have a full picture of the unit. Then I want them to briefly respond to the prompt, what was the muddiest point or the most confusing part of Unit 1 for you? You may wish to have students respond to a Muddiest point assignment at a different time in your week, unit, or module. Some examples of this would be after completing preparatory work for the week, but before coming to class. With that format, you would be able to know what is confusing and then explain more about the top 2 or 3 muddiest points when your class meets next. For an asynchronous course, you could also insert a Muddiest point assignment after the reading or other preparatory work, but before students complete the main assignment for the week. Finally, a third example would be asking your students to complete a Muddiest point assignment for a specific element in your course, such as a reading assignment, a case study, your lecture or a guest lecture, or a lab activity they have participated in. Based on when you want to ask students to complete a Muddiest point assignment, you should write your description accordingly. I like the structure of explaining the purpose, specifying when the Muddiest point should be submitted, and writing a simple prompt like what is shown here. Let's move on to the settings of a Muddiest Point assignment. I have scrolled down to below the description on this edit page. We'll start with points. As I noted in Canvas in 5 this month, Muddiest Point assignments are low stakes or no stakes, so you'll want them to be worth a small number of points or no points. It just depends on whether your department allows that and what your personal preference is. However, offering a small number of points in your course could be a good incentive to encourage your students to answer, which will allow you to collect more data. In terms of how to organize Muddiest Point assignments in your course, I have this one in the assignments group because it is an assignment. However, you could put all of your Muddiest Points in a separate group if you'd like. Creating groups and organizing your assignments is beyond the scope of this demonstration. But if you're interested, we'll have a list of resources available at the end of the demonstration, and they will also be added to the YouTube description of this video. Canvas also gives you some options for displaying the grade. You can choose points, especially if you want to or you need to assign a small number of points. Another option that would work well for a Muddiest Point assignment is complete incomplete, where students will get a check mark or an X in the Canvas gradebook. You can also choose for this to be not graded, but then it will not show in the gradebook at all. If you choose points or complete incomplete, you will also have the option to not count this assignment toward the final grade. If you select not graded, that option will disappear. For submission type, again, you have some choices. I recommend checking online because this means your students can submit directly in Canvas. However, if you prefer to have students physically write down their Muddiest Points on paper, you can still have this Canvas assignment and choose on paper in this drop-down menu. In the Canvas in 5 video, I did select online submissions. I also checked these online entry options of text entry, media recordings, and file uploads. If you select file uploads, you could also restrict the upload file types by listing the file extensions that you will accept. I'm going to give students one attempt to submit this Muddiest Point assignment. This makes the most sense because it's a low or no stakes assignment and students don't need to revise their work. It's their impression of what is not clear at a certain point in time. If students could revise this, someone could hypothetically change their answer to something like, I don't have any more questions, after you help them. And then that would affect your data collection. I'm going to continue scrolling here so that the rest of the options are visible. I don't need plagiarism review. This is not a group assignment, and it won't have peer reviews. Also, moderated grading isn't necessary. You can choose to grade these anonymously, and you would click this box right here to set that up. You should also choose a due date that works best for your course. For instance, if you were encouraging students to complete the Muddiest Point assignment prior to attending class, set the deadline for the day and hour your class meeting begins. As always, make sure that you scroll all the way to the bottom of the page and click the Save button before moving on. The next thing I want to show you is how to easily duplicate assignments in Canvas so you can quickly create Muddiest Point assignments for all of your weeks, units, or modules. To do this, we'll click on Assignments in the Canvas navigation menu, and that shows us all of the assignments in this course. On the right-hand side of the screen, you can see this series of 3 dot menus is available on each of the assignments. When I click on the 3 dot menu, a number of choices come up. I'm going to select Duplicate, and Canvas instantly duplicates the Unit 1 Muddiest Point assignment, adding the word copy to the end of it. When I click on it, you can see that it is an exact copy of what I have already created. It's the same description, points, submitting options, allowed attempts, and due date and time. I will need to make this into the Unit 2 Muddiest Point assignment. So to do that, I'll click on the Edit pencil and I will take off the word copy from the assignment name as well as updating Unit 1 to Unit 2. I also need to do that in a few places here in the description. And then I will scroll to the bottom because all of the other settings are going to be the same except the due date, and that I will place it appropriately in Unit 2. I'm ready to save and publish this now, but if when you're making copies, you're not quite ready to publish all of them, go ahead and click save, and you can still come back and edit before they become available to your students. When I click save and publish, it will publish it and my students can access it in the course. When we go back to the assignments list, we can see that it's here. I always like to make sure that these are in date order, and I can now go through and do this for the rest of my units of this course. In the final portion of this demonstration, I'm going to show you how to utilize the Canvas gradebook to manage Muddiest Point assignment submissions. Behind the scenes, I have submitted a mock student answer using the test student, so you can see how this will look when your own students submit a Muddiest Point assignment. First, to make the gradebook easier to manage, I'm going to click up here in the assignment names field, and this menu will come up that I'll scroll through and select Unit 1 Muddiest Point assignment. This has reduced the number of columns that are visible, and I think this makes for easier management when grading because we usually have numerous columns. This helps me to focus. The Canvas gradebook has some sorting capabilities that can help you to manage Muddiest Point assignments and gather data about student submissions. To access the sorting function, I'm going to hover over the column header, and this little three-dot menu has appeared. I will click on it, and there are several choices here. The first one, Sort By, allows you to sort by grade, either low to high or high to low. Or you can sort by missing, late, or excused assignments or unposted grades. If you have a larger class, this sorting can come in really handy to see what you still need to grade and how many assignments are missing or were submitted late. This data can help you to learn more about student engagement and when you might need to send reminders or mention it in class to your students. One option for grading is to respond directly to your students using SpeedGrader. I'm still in the three-dot menu here, and I can access SpeedGrader by selecting that. We see here that the Student Teaching and Learning Center does not have a submission for this assignment. I can select the test student, and this little dot tells me that they do have an assignment submission. It's available here on the left side of the screen. This particular student says that they're having some trouble figuring out how detailed their SOAP notes should be. So I can also see when they submitted this, what the word count is, and if they had submitted any files with this, I could click to load them. Below that is the box where I can enter their grade out of 5 points. Then we have the assignment comments area. I can leave a text comment here, or I can also record videos that have auto captioning by clicking this button here. I am going to enter a text response for this student. I'm going to give them a grade out of 5 points, and then I'll click submit to add the grade to the gradebook and to let the student know what their comment is. You might recall from a previous TLC Tech Time where we discussed the comment library. This might be a great time to prepare some standard comments for Muddiest Point assignments that your students could submit, and that would greatly speed up your response time. A link to this TLC Tech Time recording will be part of the resources available at the end of the demonstration, and it'll also be added to the YouTube description of this video. I also want to show you how it will work if you have selected to grade your Muddiest point assignments utilizing complete or incomplete. Behind the scenes, I changed the settings in the Unit 2 Muddiest point assignment to be graded complete or incomplete. To access that, we're here in the gradebook and we'll click up here in assignment names, scroll to the Unit 2 Muddiest point assignment, go to the three-dot menu and select Speed Grader. Again, Teaching and Learning Center doesn't have a submission, but when we go to the test student, we can see that they have submitted one where they are confused about the best order to take a patient's history. All of this on the right-hand side is going to be the same, except for here. There was a box where I can manually enter the number of points before, but now there's a drop-down menu where I can select complete, incomplete, or excused. So if I think the student's assignment is complete, I'll select that here. And you can see that the grade automatically changed to 5 out of 5 because I still had this assignment set up to be a maximum of 5 points. As with grading with points, I can use the comment library, I can manually type in comments, or upload a video response to this student. Back in the gradebook, we can see that the test student now has a green check mark noting their assignment is complete. By clicking on that check mark, additional choices for grades appear if I again click on this little caret. You could change the student's grade to an X for incomplete, change it back to ungraded, or also mark it as excused. I want to show you a couple of other ways to manage Muddiest point assignments. In the three-dot menu, I will now click on Message Students Who. This will allow me to contact students through Canvas who meet or don't meet certain criteria. This Unit 2 Muddiest point assignment is graded as complete or incomplete, and I can message students who have not yet submitted, students who have submitted, students who have not been graded, or students who have been marked incomplete. I can send a message to a certain number of students. We have one student who comes up when the choice is have not yet submitted. We can show who those recipients would be by clicking this caret here. And just as I suspected, it's the student Teaching and Learning Center who also goes by TLC. I seem to be messaging TLC a lot. Canvas has auto-populated the subject line with no submission for Unit 2 Muddiest point assignment. I could change that if I wanted to, but I think this is fine. My next step would be to paste in a message body and then click the send button when I am finished. Again, this won't connect to ATSU email. It will show up, however, in TLC's Canvas inbox. Depending on the settings you have selected for grading, there will be different choices in this drop-down menu when selecting Message Students Who. Going back to the Unit 1 Muddiest point assignment, which is graded with points, the choices have changed. Instead of messaging students who have been marked incomplete, I now can message students who have scored more than a certain number of points or scored less than a certain number of points. The other choices here are the same. A final way you can manage Muddiest points is by downloading the submissions. You can do this by going to the three-dot menu for the assignment you want to download the submissions of, and you'll click on Download Submissions. Canvas will take a few moments to compile the submissions, and then it will download them as a zip file to your computer. To access the contents of the zip file, double-click on it if you use a Mac, or right-click and select Extract All on the PC. This will contain an HTML file that you can then open in your web browser. I have now opened this HTML file in my browser, and this is a way to see all of the Muddiest point data submitted for a specific unit in one place. I've only done just the test student submission here, but in a real class, you would have multiple submissions listed on this screen. You can review those responses and see the common areas where your students have questions or concerns. You can then choose to respond to your students individually in SpeedGrader like I've shown you, or you might consider making a Canvas announcement or reserving time in your next synchronous class meeting to review Muddiest points with your students. I hope this demonstration about Muddiest point assignments in Canvas was helpful. One final word of advice I wanted to mention is that if you are seeing trends in your Muddiest point data, that students are consistently confused about a particular part of your course, this gives you an evidence-based way to continually improve your course and help your students to achieve your learning objectives. Our content in Canvas and 5 and TLC Tech Time provides only brief generalized overviews. If you would like to get more individualized support specific to your own courses, please reach out to the TLC. We would be happy to help via email or in a Zoom consultation. We'll also share some resources in the chat and in the YouTube description to help you get started.